this is Rustic Indigo, and this is Taos Sunset. And they're much more textural, and they're very strongly opaque. These are translucent, these are opaque. So we're going to just take an element here, and we're going to do a little bit of creating with it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to stamp something.
Are these your papers, firstly?
Okay, so this is just a piece of watercolor paper that I just happen to have with me that I've worked over already with paper artsy paints and a little bit of stamping. But the powders that we're going to use now work better when you have some detail and when you have some variability. If you just have sort of a very simple background, you're not going to get your bang for your buck. You want the colors underneath to be a little bit different because they're all going to show through. So I'm going to disappear, talk amongst yourselves, and I'm going to get some stamps. That I'm going to use for this. And what I'm going to do is get some stamps and create some interest in the background. So I'm going to get 3 stamps here. And I'm using, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this ink, it just came out. It stays on pigment, so it's the new Stays On. If you've ever used Stays On, you know it's permanent ink, but it's dye-based. It's a little translucent. This is pigment, so it's a little bit different. It has a different pad. It's much more opaque, very rich, dark, pigmented colors. It's become a new obsession over the last 20 minutes. So what I'm going to do now is just stamp a little bit. I'm going to stamp lightly. This is just about taking that background and adding some interest to it so that it's not just a paint background, but there's actually some things that the eye can go to. And so I'm going to do that with a bunch of different stamps and a bunch of different colors. But again, aiming just for background. So it's kind of, you know, when you say sort of faux texture, you're just getting a little bit of that texture. And for me, it's not important whether anyone knows what stamp it is. I don't want them to actually identify it. You got some interesting texture there. Then a lot of times when I stamp, I like to use elements of the stamp. So with this one, to start with, I'm only going to use the end there. And I'm going to use that as a border. And I'm going to create these little sort of doodad figures there. So I have a little bit of a border and then bring them there as well. Many people, including myself, will take an ink pad and kind of run around the edge. I love doing that because I feel like it frames it out. It makes it feel a little bit more complete, and it highlights what's inside. All right, so you can kind of see I purposely sort of did a frame. Now I need something in the middle, and it's got to be something focal. So what I'm going to do is just choose a small stamp, and I'm going to make that the focal point. So these stamps I'm using, these are minis. They're from my new release at Paper Artsy. It's the first time I've done minis, so I'm kind of excited about it. A little tip, I'm going to do this upside down. If you don't have an acrylic block and you want a good print, just take one of your ink pads and just use the pressure that way. And in fact, as long as your ink pad doesn't have a paper label, then those ink pads, these serve as acrylic blocks. So I'm going to do that.
Hello from Germany.
Hey, Germany. If I spoke German, I'd say, hello, how are you? Anyone know? Yeah.
Guten Tag.
Guten Tag. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to add another hand there.
Hello from India. You know, I'm not going to start saying every place.
Every
I'm
language.
like, yeah, okay.
Hey, India. I'm going to add that. And then I'm going to add one more little detail, and then we get to go to the embossing. I'm going to add something there, just for balance. Okay. So let's go to these embossing powders now.
Spain. Okay, now everybody's telling me where
Hola,
they're from.
¿cómo está?
Yeah, Spain, Hawaii. It's like, okay.
Hawaii.
Hawaii. Yeah.
Hello. Okay. So, if you've embossed before, you know you need some sort of adhesive, and I'm using the Versamark. It's a dirty pad. Everyone knows they look very white and crisp when you first see them, but they never stay that way. And then I'm going to break into the baked velvets. So this is one of the sets. This is the Sahara, and it's the warm reds and oranges and yellows. And then this, in the little tins, is the Mediterranean, and it's sort of the blues and greens. And so I'm going to make the decision which one I want to use, and probably I might even use both. The way you start is just take your embossing pad and just cover and coat the entire surface of the piece you're using with it. And then, because I have all that embossing ink there, I'm going to get rid of that so that my excess doesn't stick to it. And now I have to make a choice. So I can either choose to stay in the same color family, or I could go in a different color family. So I'm going to ask all you guys to choose. Different? Okay. So how about if we do some orange? Okay. So I have lots of options here. These are translucent. So whatever you see there, you're still going to see. I could layer the entire thing with orange. I could drizzle it with bunches of different colors. So let's do a little bit of a mix. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shake it out. And I'm going to kind of try to be a little bit organic with it, which isn't so easy. And I'm going to shake off the excess. And then put this back. And then just so we see two colors at once, let's use the other side with the maize. If you've ever painted with translucent acrylics, sometimes they're hard to get the hang of because it's not like color mixing, but everything shifts. And so what you want to do is be aware that some of this will take some practice. Because if I put yellow over blue, these kinds, it's going to look different than yellow over green. If I put yellow over black, it's going to look different. And what I would always do is when you're first learning is err on the side of light. You want your background to be light. If I take a black background and I add this yellow, thinking, wow, that would pop, you're literally not going to see this. You're going to get a waxy black. So you just need to kind of play and practice to get the hang of it. So I'm going to do that. Now that's kind of organic, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. All right, then I'm going to get my heat tool and I'm going to heat this up. Just put it on that. Let's see how it looks. So you can already see that blue underneath, it actually looks green now because this was the original. So we can do a side by side because we had the color mixing. These are fully translucent, so you know it's heated when you get to see everything underneath very clearly. I'm using a Wagner heat gun. They're my favorite tools. They absolutely heat faster than any other tool I've ever used. Because you know how long sometimes you have to wait.
Wow.
Now again, because I'm going over blue, the colorations are not going to be true to what's in the jar because it's all color mixing.
Even though the underneath is paint and not actual texture, baked texture or embossing. So it's mixing with the paint.
Absolutely.
Wow.
You can do these baked textures, the baked velvets over any surface. They work on fabric, they work on metal, they work on paper, they work on canvas. I had a really weird experience that was exciting yesterday. A woman came by and asked if she could do it on metal because she's a jewelry artist, and I said you could. And she literally took off a necklace that she made, which was stainless steel, and she asked me to do it. And I did it, and I was a little frightened because it was her jewelry. She kept saying, no, it's okay, I'll make another one, I'll make another one. It ended up being really quite beautiful. All right, so you get the sense of the coloration. So now, let's just go back and see that this is what it started as. And these are the colors that I added. Somewhere there's yellow, and that's what I got. So it's tricky, but the beauty of it is that you buy one bottle and you can go in so many different directions depending upon your choices underneath. When you go on white, this is just white cardstock. You see what colors you get. They're true. As you add other colors underneath, they shift completely. Now, I don't like to stop there. I like to go and do more layers with it, and I can do several different things. I could now maybe bring in some of the blues, and I can do that in several different ways. I could go ahead and reheat this, and once it's reheated, any other embossing powder that I pour on will stick. Or I can go ahead with the Versamark and just layer it. But I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to go into the baked texture family, which are these sort of more traditional. I'll show you that one. That's Taos Sunset. This is Rustic Indigo. And somewhere in my bag down there is Blizzard, which I can take out later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually add some of these in there to get some contrast. So I'm going to bring in some of the blues and whites, and I'm going to add some of that. So I have some contrast and some similar tones. And the way I do that is carefully move it away from the heat tool, and I'm just going to reheat the surface. All the Emerald Creek powders we call them artisan powders. It's because they're blends of multiple things. So if you look closely at that, I don't know if you can see it at home, but it's got 5 or 6 different powders in it. Many of them have little pebbles and stones and pieces of flocking. So it's a really unique powder. So what I'm going to do is reheat the surface, and then I'm going to pinch some of this. I'm going to make sure the area that I want to get this on is hot, and then I'm going to move the heat gun so I don't blow it away, and I'm going to just drizzle it with my finger like that. And it's going to be absorbed in there, and then I'm going to reheat it. And I'm going to get some different color. Now these are opaque, so it's over a little bit of that hand. It's gonna black out some of that hand. Look how gorgeous that looks. It kind of integrates the two sides. It's got some metallics in there as well. But I also want to do some of the indigo because I feel like this is also pretty consistent color. I think it'd be more interesting to have some contrast. So I'm going to reheat. I'm going to grab some blue and some white. I'm going to drizzle some of that. And we'll see if this was an epic fail or it actually works. And if I'm afraid, for example, let's say I put that out and I'm afraid that it cooled too much, and if I put the heat tool and it blew away, then all I would do is just heat from below. And then once it begins to melt again, I can comfortably go on top and reheat without it blowing away. Yeah.
Have you tried these on alcohol inks, like on like because it would be translucent on top of them?
You mean alcohol inks underneath? I'm not a person who uses alcohol inks too much, so I can't say. But I know from Kim Evans, who's the owner of the company, that it works.
Okay.
One of the nice things about this is that anything you do under the powder, you can do over the powder. So I can stamp on this. I could take a pen and write on this. I could do anything. But I am going to do one other thing. I am in love with borders. And so I'm looking for a powder from my old release that was called Rocky Road. Looking desperately, hoping somebody's going to hear it. Oh, hey Kathy, what's up? Thanks for joining us. So what I'm going to do, this is Rocky Road. It was from last year's release. It's got stones and crystals, and it's got a little bling in it. But it's kind of macho too. So I'm just going to run this around the edge like that, and maybe I'll run it a little further in the corners, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shake it up. I'm going to pour this around.
The question is to those who are watching, I just want to make sure that we're in sync with time and stuff. Hearing it okay, see it okay, fuzzy.
The other thing I will mention.
So they're asking what those are called. Sorry,
this is Rocky Road Baked Texture, and they're embossing powders.
Embossing powders from Emerald Creek.
Emerald Creek. One of the things, because our powders are so unique and have so many different elements in it, that let's say, so I'm going to move that aside for 1 second. Let's just say that I open this jar here. Let's get rid of that. I'm going to make a nice mess. Let's say I open this one. This is patina oxide. And this is this beautiful patina with a copper. So let's say I want more patina or I want more copper. Most people just will shake the bottle and pour out. What I say is always have a spoon with you, and I can selectively choose. So for example, with the rustic indigo, maybe there's sometimes I want more white and sometimes I want to keep it more indigo. So you don't necessarily just have to pour it, you can just take a spoon and choose the elements you want and then sprinkle. And always remember, because the elements weigh different things, that they separate, and so you always want to shake. If you just want to pour, you want to shake the bottle first, so that way you get the blend. Otherwise you are going to, see how beautifully blended that is at the bottom? Whereas when I do that, you only see mostly blue. So the shake is good. So let's get back to this guy. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to heat the edges here. And I've gotten a little bit of a frame going. And it's just got this beautiful silver, and the dark from the edge really, I think, highlights the sort of lighter colors on the inside.
Somebody's asking where can they get it and when is it available?
It will be shipping in February, and you can get it internationally it's a Canadian company. You can get it in Canada, you can get it in the US. The best thing to do is go to emeraldcreek.ca
.ca or .co.
Right, depending upon if you're in Canada or United States, or .co, and there's a list of stockists there. You can get it from SethApter.com. I have my own online shop, but plenty of stores, and we're very supportive of the independent shops. So, probably go to an independent if you can get it, and if not, then
I know
you can come to
Joggles
me.
is carrying it now through
Joggles is carrying it, yes, but there's a long list on the website. This would be an example. Again, remember, it started like that. Now, some of the powders have a shine, and some of them are flat and matte. If you like the opposite, it's a simple fix. If I wanted to make this completely matte, I would just take matte medium, and I would put a layer of matte medium over it. If I used one of these really flat matte velvets, and I wanted it with a little sheen, I would just take some gloss medium and seal the piece and get the shine. So it really works in sort of innovative, variable ways, which is great. So this is one way to use it, but if you're all hanging around, or anybody hanging around, I want to show you another way, a completely different way. That's also become one of my favorite ways. And let's see, I need a pen, but I guess we're still on video, so I'll do that later. I want to sign this and give it to somebody watching. So what I'm going to do is disappear again.
Somebody asked if it comes off like glitter. I don't know what they meant by that.
No.
No, it's permanent. Yeah,
it's permanent.
It will be there.
It does it.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Sure. So I like to use stencils and create using stencils. So I'm going to do that. One of my most favorite of the new releases, don't tell the rest, is this Eclipse. It's a black, flat, matte, and it's very, very fine. So it's very different than most of our other powders, which are really textural. But what I've discovered with this is that it's seriously opaque, and I've been using the blackest of ink pads to stamp, and then I use this next to it, and the black of the ink pad looks gray next to this. So this has now become sort of my default. Whenever I stamp, I'm using this, and there's the white version as well. So what I'm going to do, instead of doing it with stamping, I'm going to do it with a stencil. So I'm just going to find the stencil here in the pile. Yeah, I'm going to use that. I think that's a cool image.
We have Marlene saying hi, Katie from the UK saying hi.
Hey guys.
These are stencils. Can you say where they're from?
This is from Stencil Girl Products. I have a line of stencils with Stencil Girl, but I'm an equal opportunity designer, so this is not one of my stencils. This is from Danielle Wolf. So if you happen to like this one, but you go to stencilgirl.com, you'll find stencilgirlproducts.com. You'll find all their stencils.
And this is embossing powders for the person who asked.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a sponge, and I'm going to put it on the embossing ink on the sponge, and I'm going to sponge through. By the way, one of the nice things about getting your pads dirty is you're more likely to be able to see where you're putting the embossing ink, so you don't always forget, which is easy to do when you can't see it. And I'm just going to work this kind of randomly. It's a beautiful stencil to do that with. Yeah, and let's just see what we get. You know, on camera, maybe you'll catch the light and see where it is, but generally speaking, it's really hard to see. But you're going to see it perfectly well as soon as I do this. So again, this is Eclipse. It's in our neutrals kit, Big Velvet.
Anthony says hi.
Anthony?
Yep.
Hey, Anthony. So what I love to do is then just do that. I just think that's just magic. And I got that gorgeous stencil there. And then I'm going to close it
That's
up.
a really nice stencil.
It's great, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
there's so many on the site, and I hadn't seen that one, so I like that you're
Yeah.
demoing it.
Yeah, there's a million of them, and sometimes some of the really good ones, especially the older ones, get lost. That's true on every site. So I'm going to hold it down,
Yeah.
and I'm going to heat it, and this is just the blackest black. It's got this beautiful texture to it, really like velvet, and it just pops off a lighter background in such a big bad way. Similar, we have the white. Maybe I'll use that next. Yeah.
Karen Rogers says hi.
Who?
Karen Rogers.
Hey, Kara. How are you? So you got that. It's an easy way to take your stencils kind of to a different level than just putting ink through it, and then you have the balance of it. Now, one of the things I love to do with stencils, because although I'm on camera so it might not work, is let the molten hot powder dry, and so it's cooler to the touch. If you're like me, you always want to touch it before you should. Okay, and then I'm going to replace the stencil. And I actually got it right this time. And then what I could do, well, I could just reheat it, but I'm going to go ahead with the Versamark, and I'm going to very randomly take the sponge, and I'm going to kind of hit. I really want it kind of random. Sometimes with a sponge you're going to get some lines, and that's not what I want, but yeah, I'm going to do that. Okay, I go overboard a little bit. And then I'm going to disappear again. Sorry, guys. It's in my other bag. All right, so I was going to disappear to try to find a different color that I brought.
And it'll just zoom in a little bit so you can see it's cool. How it's
I
got
think you can
a little
use
bit
that.
of
I
flash.
think that's for the mermaid collection.
It's not clear.
Isn't it?
It's gonna have a purple to it.
Oh, this one. Oh, I thought it was my
This
white
one.
cloud.
It's
Okay,
not your
so
white
I'm
cloud.
on camera, so I'm just going to go ahead and do something. I wanted something kind of light,
catch.
contrasty. What's that? Desert? Sure. Let's do some desert. So this is in the same line. It is part of the Big Velvets, and it's in the neutral kit. So I'm going to go over, and hopefully we just got partial coverage. Well, we got a lot of coverage, okay.
Do you want to use a brush?
Yeah.
I'm
So-
gonna block everyone, so sorry.
I have one.
Okay.
So when you do that, and you feel like maybe there's a little bit too much there, if you take a brush that's clean and
Yeah,
dry,
do you want me to give you a clean dry one?
yeah, I'll fake it.
Okay.
And you can just begin to kind of sort of brush off or paint it with black. Okay, so what that's telling me is that I should need to leave it the way it is. And I'm just going to reheat it. You got to go with the flow, people.
That's when surprises happen.
Exactly. Well, this happens all the time when you're creating, and that's if you get stuck on that and feel like you've ruined it because something happens that you don't want to happen, you're in deep trouble with mixed media. And so while that's hot, I'm now going to go in and I'm going to add some other flavor to it.
It's actually like brushed off body.
Yeah, I like that too. I actually really like that. So while it's hot, I'm going to, and we'll make it some variable.
I love that one.
And we'll bring in some other colorations and just make it more interesting. I think a lot of times with stamping and stenciling and then using embossing powders, people kind of default to one layer. You know, they stamp through they ink through a stencil and leave it. And I say ink with 3 or 4 or 5 different colors. And I feel that way with the embossing powder too. You just work your layers, and if you feel like they're too dark, add light. If they're too light, add some dark. And then now what I'm going to do to finish it off is I'm going to go back with the Eclipse, and I'm going to bring some of the black back in, because that was way too much neutral with the desert color.
Best thing learned from your class with Kathy is that go with the flow.
Go with the flow. Yeah, I'm liking that much better. Now if you feel like, oh, I loved it when it was all black, you could just fill it up with black again. But we're gonna call that a day with that stencil. And you can see that it's kind of modeled, and probably what I would do if I had all the time in the world is I would now go in with a pen and I would highlight the edges, and so it would bring back the original stencil design much better. All right, should we do any more? Thank you. Pleasure. See you guys.
Thank you so much, Seth.
Oh, sure. But what I really want to do is I know I'm running late, but I want to run across and get the other colors that I want to use, just to have them here
Thank you.
and
Bye.
actually use them. Bye. Thank you, guys.
Does anyone have a question for Seth?